Lord, change our heart. You're living in a lawful way. Be mindful of what you say. Be sincere when you pray. Today could be your last day. Bear each other no malice. Greed and faith can coexist in the same heart.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, dear viewers, to our second program here live on Gems of the Heart. Dear viewers, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for uniting us again to serve His beautiful deen. And I'd also like to thank all of the viewers for tuning in and giving us their continual support. Not just that, but mashallah, we've been tracking your progress and your input on this particular program, Gems of the Heart. You've been working with us very hard on our Facebook page, and many of you have been doing the homework that the Sheikh has said. So inshallah ta'ala, after the break, we will go into those that answer the question, and we'll get the correct answer as well from the Sheikh. Dear viewers, Gems of the Heart is a program which is designed to focus or to look at the problems related to the heart and how we can overcome these problems and how we can better ourselves as Muslims and get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the manner that He wants us to be. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that we should meet Him with a sound heart. So what is that? How do we understand that? How do we purify our hearts? Inshallah ta'ala, this is the duty of this program. Today we're going to be looking at the diseases of the heart. What are the different types of illnesses that our hearts are affected by? And then in due course we're going to take each one of these aspects and talk about them in great detail so we can understand them better. And we're going to be looking at the articles of faith, the articles of Iman, the belief in Allah, the belief in the angels, the belief in Qadr. And we're going to look at how all of these things connect with our hearts. And we don't want to study these principles as theoretical knowledge, but we want to look at it from a practical aspect. What aspects of the belief in Allah that when we know about Him increases our Iman? What about the facts that when we know about the angels, it awakens our heart, it opens our eyes? These are the topics, inshallah ta'ala, that we have prepared for you, and they'll be coming up in the coming weeks. But as for today, we're going to be looking at the diseases of the heart. So let me begin by introducing the Sheikh, and then we can go into our questions. So Sheikh, I would like to begin by introducing you, Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan. We are here on our second program of Gems on the Heart. Sheikh, I'd like to welcome you by saying Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Barakallahu feek.
Jazakallah khair. Sheikh, mashallah, I gave a quick summary of some of the topics that we are going to be looking at in the near future. Now, just very quickly, is there anything else you would like to add to that so the viewers can understand a bit more about this concept of the pillars of Iman and the heart?
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ba'd. The deen of Islam with matters of belief and actions, it all has to come out from our hearts.
Okay.
And many people, when they study the Aqidah, for example, which is something essential, and we have to study matters of belief, but they study it from a theoretical point of view only, which is important. But we need to add to this of the effect of these matters of Aqidah on the heart.
Okay.
Because if you believe in something, that means that has to show in your speech and actions.
Right.
Otherwise, it's really deficiency in the belief then. So we have to make sure that the belief is established in the heart and it's affecting our hearts, purifying our hearts, and therefore our speech and actions will be according to our belief, not this double or triple standards that we have in our life. No, we need to make sure that everything is on the same way, and that's by looking into matters of belief, but from the perspective of how it purifies our own hearts,
Okay.
and then actions, whether it's good actions done by the heart or bad actions.
Okay, excellent. On that note, dear viewers, I'd also like to remind you that our program, Gems of the Heart, is a live program. You can use any of our two numbers that you will see running across the screens to call us, to give us your questions, your comments, your queries, anything that you would like to bring to the program, feel free to do so. And if you're calling outside of Egypt, then please don't forget to use the code, which is 002. Not just that, but dear viewers, the question from last week still stands, and we're going to leave it open until the second segment when we open the phone lines. And the question was, what are the different types of hearts? And mashallah, we've got a lot of responses, but if anybody would like to call us and give us their answers live on air, feel free to do so at the beginning of the second segment. Okay, Sheikh, let's begin with our topic for today. When we say diseases of the heart, can I ask you to just give us an introduction in what is meant by a disease?
Right. A disease, if we're talking about the heart, there's two types of diseases. There's the physical diseases and there's the inward or the heart diseases, basically, that has to do with our soul, with our iman. The physical aspect of it, this is something for people to deal with in the medical field, and this is not our concern.
Okay.
Right? The concern is the other type of diseases, which is sometimes more fatal than the physical diseases. If a person is sick, he has a heart problem. If a person dies, it doesn't really matter because we're all going to die. I'm not saying that to belittle death, but how would that person meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? With a good heart or with a bad heart and a sick heart? So the diseases that concerns the spiritual or the purification aspect of the heart, this is what we need to be concerned about. And when we come to this topic of diseases of the heart, the definition of a disease briefly, anything that goes off from its perfection or from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created it for, that means that thing does have a disease. For example, if the eyes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for us to see things, if you don't see things in the perfect way, that means the eyes is weak, the eyes has deficiency, has some form of a sickness or illness, because it's supposed to be perfectly working. So the same thing when it comes to the heart, it's something that has a function, and we need to make sure that the function of the heart is according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. Falling short of this, that means the heart is sick. We need to do something to cure it and to perfect it again.
Okay, subhanAllah. So, Sheikh, when we look at the disease of the heart, is this mentioned inside of the Quran, like the word illness in Arabic, you would say it's marad. Is that mentioned inside of the Quran?
It's mentioned in the Quran a few times.
Okay.
When it talked about the hypocrites, for example, in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that because of their actions, because they're hypocrites, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sealed their hearts. خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sealed their hearts as a result of the disease in it. There is also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about the disease of the shahwa, or the lust or the desire, that would make the person always try to commit sins with regards to the relationship between men and women. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the wives of the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslim women in large to make sure that they don't soften their voice when they're talking. Otherwise, فَيَطْمَعَ الَّذِي فِي قَلْبِهِ مَرَض. So that the one that has a marad or a disease in his heart, he should not long for something that is sinful. The same thing for the believers. One of the dua that is mentioned in the Quran, a beautiful dua that we should memorize and frequently say. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that the believers, they say, رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا. Oh Allah, do not deviate our hearts away after you have guided us. So if anything that is other than guidance, it's deviation, that means it's sickness, it's disease, it's illness, that has cure to it, because as the Prophet ﷺ said, there's no there's no disease that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought down unless there's a dawa, there's a cure for it. Whoever knows it, knows it. Some people, they don't know it. Some people, they're too much following their desires. They don't want to take the medicine. Medicine is usually bitter sometimes. It's, sometimes it's a shot, sometimes it's a surgery for the physical diseases. But for the heart, the matter is much easier than this. But we still have to be patient with these means of cure, as it's mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ.
SubhanAllah. Sheikh, some people will say that the diseases of the body, they end when somebody dies. But the diseases of the heart, they actually begin when somebody dies. What does that statement mean?
Maybe they refer to the effect of the diseases starts when a person dies. Many people, they might not be aware of their diseases in their hearts when they're alive, because they're physically functioning, they're eating, drinking, making money, all kinds of good things. But then they're not paying attention to their hearts, even might be dead when it comes to matters of iman and faith and good deeds and so on. That person, when he dies, he would realize that he had missed out so much, and it's too late for the person to cure himself. So that's why this is the time where we need to work on ourselves.
Okay. Sheikh, before we go into looking at some of the actual diseases of the heart, can I also ask you to just give us an insight into the process of purification? How important is it that we actually contemplate on that as well?
No. Purification, the word purification means that there is something against what is pure. There is something impure, and that's why you're purifying something, right? So you don't purify something that is already pure. And that's why when we say purification of our hearts or purification of our soul, that means we're saying that we are basically impure if we don't purify ourselves.
Okay.
So why this is important? Because it's not something that we're attacking one another or saying you are sick in your heart, you need to purify yourself. No, this is by default in every single human being. If we don't purify ourselves, we are by default, we fall into diseases in the heart.
Okay.
So that's why purification of our heart has to be done by the one that created these hearts, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the cure to it is not from our own liking or opinions or what we think worked or didn't work. It has to be from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, many things. The ulama, they contemplated on this. And there are many of them that they wrote books about this subject. When we look into the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we find many things, which is basically the syllabus, if it's correct to say, to this program, where we have to talk about matters of belief, matters of aqeedah.
Okay.
Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he said the first thing that cures the heart is the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His rububiyyah, in His uluhiyyah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Rabb. This by itself, if a person have his heart full of this belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Rabb, is the Lord, is the owner of all things, He's the creator of all things, sustenance, life and death, everything is by the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just that fact, when it goes into the heart, it pushes away all of these attachments that a person is attached to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is all sicknesses, you know, what people, they panic, they all kinds of miseries in this heart because their hearts are not attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the foundation of the diseases of the heart, when the hearts are not attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and with the knowledge, a person would know how to attach the heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then the good deeds and the bad deeds has an effect, of course. So we need to know them to acquire them. We need to know the bad deeds that affects the heart directly to stay away from them and to keep on cleaning. And we mentioned before the example of the house.
Right.
If you don't keep on cleaning the house, the dust and the dirt will come in whether you like it or not. Even if it's very closely tied, still we have to make sure that we clean ourselves. And that's through the wahy, Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ.
Excellent, Sheikh. Many times when we use the word aqidah or belief, many people get a bit worried or get a bit scared. But just to put that into the practical context and saying how it affects our hearts, am I right to understand that, for example, when you understand that Allah is all-seeing from one of His names and attributes, and then you realize that He can see everything that you do, and you stop committing that sin because you know Allah is watching. Is that what we mean by practical aspects of
correct. And whether we call it a practical aspect or this is aqidah itself.
Okay.
This is what's supposed to the aqidah to affect our hearts. It's not just a matter of information, it's a belief. You know, if I will give it a simple example. If I believe that if I inhale some dust, that's going to hurt me, right? What should I do when there's dust in front of me? Should I inhale it? That means that's contradict what I believe. Right? So the same thing when it comes to if we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-seer and this belief is in the heart, this has to show in our speech and actions. That means when a person is committing a sin, he knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing him. Yes, we tend to be sometimes in state of forgetfulness, but this is what the job of matters of Iman is, to take us away from this forgetfulness and to be always watchful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching us. And He has a reason for everything that we face in our life. The same thing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the all-hearer, the most merciful, the most wise. It's really, it would bring the satisfaction and the happiness in this life and hereafter once this knowledge is in the heart about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Matters of belief, just the first pillar of Al-Iman, to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with His names and attributes. This is what we're lacking when it comes to education and learning and matters of aqidah like this and the effect of it. And this is, inshallah, we keep on saying inshallah because this is a detailed subject. And we want to make sure that we're aware of it so that we will take the effort, put the effort to learn it step by step.
And I think, Sheikh, this is probably one of the reasons to why this program differentiates itself from other programs with regards to aqidah, because we're going to try our best to make it as practical as we can and try to make the topic of aqidah come to life.
Right, and we will mention the matters of aqidah.
Of course.
Because we don't want to belittle them. This is actually what separates a Muslim from a disbeliever. And it separates within the Muslims who is on the right track. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said that this ummah will split into 73 sects, all of which in the hellfire except one. And when they asked the Prophet ﷺ, what is this one? He said, مَا أَنَا عَلَيْهِ وَأَصْحَابِ الْيَوْمِ, what me and my companions are on today.
Right.
So this is a very serious matter. So within the boundaries of Islam, we need to make sure also that we're among this group that is on the truth the way it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So matters of belief, matters of aqidah, and how these different aspects would affect our hearts in purifying it, and therefore our even ibadah, our salah will be different.
Okay.
Our actions will be different. And that's why, for example, Ka'b ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, he said a beautiful statement, the meaning of which, that when a person is on the sabil and sunnah, he's on the right path, and he's on the way of the Prophet ﷺ, then the less deeds will be better for him than someone that do so much of the good deeds, but he's not on the sabil and the sunnah. He's not on the same, on the right path, and he's not on the way of the Prophet ﷺ.
Right.
So it makes us have less effort, right, physical effort, right, and it makes us focused, and it makes us purify our hearts in a very direct and an easy way. Otherwise, it corrupts the heart.
Right.
If a person do all kinds of worship, but it's not according to the way of the Prophet ﷺ, it's not just like it's not going to purify it. It's going to increase the filth in the heart. Takes the person away more and more from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, excellent. Sheikh, on that note, you talked about the concept of purification and that being the key to success. I'd just like to get your comments on a verse from the Quran where Allah says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى, that the one who purifies himself is indeed the successful one. What is meant by this verse?
قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى, the falah, the word aflah. And this is something that we hear in the adhan of every time, Hayya al-falah, come to the success. Al-falah, it is not just good things.
Okay.
Al-falah is when the khayr or good stays forever, right? So this is not a temporary goodness that a person might receive like anything else in this life. If you say, good things will happen to you if you do such and such, you might think a lot of wealth, good health, whatever there is. But this is all temporary. Everybody has to leave this behind. But when something is based on the falah, قَدْ أَفْلَحْ, that means he would receive what is good, and that good would stay with that person forever in this life and hereafter. Who would be in that state? مَنْ تَزَكَّى, whoever is purified. And that's the word zakah comes from. Zakah, which is an obligatory charity, it's called zakah because it purifies our wealth. So the word tazakka means purified. That means again there is filth that needs to be cleaned, and that's what the purification comes in place. More than this is that this is the job of the Messenger of Allah. Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him for this. لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَإِنْ كَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a favor from Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed His favor upon the believers when He sent from among themselves a messenger of Allah, reciting the book of Allah, that's first. The second thing right after that is وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and purifies them. So the Prophet ﷺ purify us. How is that? By following his way, by reciting the book of Allah and the way of the Prophet ﷺ. And if there is no purification, that means either the lack of knowledge or the person is not taking the means to purify oneself.
Okay, excellent. Sheikh, let's look at now some of the issues or some of the possible problems that come out of a diseased heart. The first one that I have on my list is the fact that a person's priorities, or a person will view his understanding of this world to be corrupted or upside down. What is the reality of that?
This is one of the great punishments in this life. When a person's vision is distorted, when a person doesn't know where to go or what is right and what is wrong. This is the worst punishment because it leads to what's worse. So as a result of the heart being not pure, this is what happens to one's vision.
Okay.
And the heart is not pure because of the effect of sins. So it's all related to one another. And that's the amazing thing about the heart and how we perceive things. A person might be someone that is very smart, and people would listen to that person and think that he's very smart and he has the highest degrees and everything. But he's not able to see what is right and what is wrong. Moreover, that he would think that he's on the truth when he's in the total falsehood. How can a person be deceived like this? It's because of the heart when it's polluted, because of the sins and the diseases of the heart. A person would see what is right, wrong, and vice versa. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that about some sins. For example, riba, usury.
Right.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the one that consumes and takes riba and usury. He said, الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ الرِّبَا لا يقومون إلا كما يقوم الذي يتخبطه الشيطان من المس. The ones that eats riba usually deals with interest and so on. He is like, and the tafsir of the ayah has two meanings. So it's one in the hereafter or one in this life. As if he is being beaten by the shaitan, as if he is in some form of epilepsy or something like this, being beaten by the shaitan.
Like he is drunk or something.
Right.
Okay.
And this is just for that sin. So some said this is the effect of it in this life, and also he will be resurrected like this in the day of judgment. So, but if a person sits with his own reason, what does riba has to do with this? This is the effect of it. This is all related to one another. So the perception of things, this is a favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those who their hearts are pure. The heart is polluted. The eyes, there is ghishawa. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that in the Quran, there's a cover on the eyes that is not able to see things in the right way.
And Sheikh, is that right? When we see, subhanAllah, many professors or people holding PhDs and so on and so forth in so many things, you would think they're very intelligent, but when it comes to belief in Allah, either they will deny the belief in Allah, or they will worship something which you would think is absolutely unbelievable. You could actually worship that.
Right, and that's again, this is because of neglecting the diseases of the heart. There is nothing worse in this life than to associate partners with Allah. When people follow their desires, and this life is nothing but about just eating and drinking and desires and myself and so on, then a person loses the focus and loses what is right and what is wrong. And when you talk to these types of people, they won't be able to talk intellectually in the matters of what is haqq and batil, what is truth and falsehood. They can talk about the atom and the chemistry and physics perfectly, mashallah. This is the worldly knowledge that everybody can take with the means. But when it comes to truth and falsehood, they are so weak because they're lacking this truth from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet.
And so could we tie that in with the opposite as well? Like when you look at people that have lived all their lives in the villages, far away from being involved with the internet and so on and so forth, that subhanAllah, like I give the example of my grandma, my grandfather, if you ask them questions about Islam, they won't be able to answer you. But they have a firm belief in Allah, and they firmly worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is that something we could correlate?
Of course, and the more the person is away from corruption, the more things are clearer in matters of vision. And you add to this knowledge of the deen, then that's the perfect combination. And that's why you would find, even when people are dealing with the creation of Allah directly, they are more to their nature and to their innate, more than someone that is dealing with too much of the technology things, right? That's why we have to put more effort. That's why a person, if he's a tiler, a farmer, and he's a Muslim, of course, and he put the seed in the ground and it grows, this person has more, should be, relying more on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he waits for the help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His heart is always working, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help and so on and so forth.
Okay, excellent. Sheikh, that brings me down to the next disease of the heart, and that would be a subcategory of what we just mentioned, but the love of this world. That when somebody, his heart is not in line with what it's supposed to be, he loves this world so much. Is that true?
This is true, and these are also signs if a person wants to check. If you want to check whether we have a disease in our heart or not, this is one of the things that we test our hearts. Where is our love and our attachment, our happiness and sadness? What makes us happy in this life, and what makes us sad and miserable in this life? If it's losing money, if it's losing a loved one, whatever, this is what makes us miserable in this life, and that's it, then that we have an issue. It's normal for a person to be sad when he loses something, but what really makes the person move and sit and stand and so on. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned this in the authentic hadith, ta'isa abdul dinar, ta'isa abdul dirham. He is miserable, the one that is a slave of the dinar, the slave of the dollar, the slave of the types of clothing and so on. He's in misery. Whether it's a dua from the Prophet ﷺ on that person, or whether it's stating the fact, and both the end result are the same. So this is the real miserable life when a person's heart is attached to this life, as if he is worshipping this life, worshipping his desire. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that in the Quran, أَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Did you see those who took their desire as ilah, as one to be worshipped? They're obedient to them, they follow them, they just do whatever their desires dictate on them. And this is the real misery of this life. Otherwise, if a person would stay away from this and have the heart attached to the hereafter, attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the happiness and the sadness is according, did I miss Fajr today? This is the real misery. If a person misses Salatul Asr in Jama'ah, right? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man taraka salat al-asr, فَكَأَنَّمَا وَتِرَ أَهْلَهُ وَمَنْهُ." Whoever misses Salatul Asr altogether, not Jama'ah, just missed it till Maghrib time comes, as if he lost all of his wealth and all of his family. If a person, and we should test our hearts, if a person, the news comes, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbid, that all of his family are dead and he lost all of his wealth, how sad that person would be. Are we in the same level of sadness when a person would think, even, because may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbid for us to do that, missing Salatul Asr till Maghrib time, intentionally, no excuse. Right? This is far worse, because the effect of it is an everlasting one. Right? And these types of questions, when we ask ourselves, it kind of exposes our hearts. And then we need to be concerned, and then we need to take the means and to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make a lot of istighfar and have the good companionship. Read the Quran every day, making the salah. The system in the deen of Islam is sufficient to purify our hearts if we constantly just do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to do.
SubhanAllah, Shaykh, when you put things into context like you just did, it makes your eyes open up, because everybody knows the importance of the Fajr prayer, the importance of the Asr prayer. But when you put it in that context, I mean, that really does shake the hearts, doesn't it?
Right, of course. And this is a very simple test, really, that we need to ask ourselves. If you look in any major city in the morning, you know, where the cars are lined up and traffic, they're going where? They're going to work, which is nothing wrong with that. This is the normal life for human beings. But where are these people when the adhan is being called for Fajr Salah? Sleeping, or maybe drinking their coffee? Or where is the masajid of the Muslims? Why is it not full with people in Salatul Fajr? And then we talk about why the situation of the Ummah is this or that. We're not fulfilling the basic obligations of the deen of Islam the way it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So what do we expect? And this is, nobody would say, well, it's the leaders this or the people that. No, we're talking about ourselves. Nobody's forcing you to stay at home and you pray. At home, the masajid, alhamdulillah, in most of the Muslim countries are open, the adhan is being called, and where are the people? And this is simple things like this. You know, it's not something deep knowledge or anything like that. Simple matters like this would put the person on track, and then that become the starting point for us to learn and to contemplate and to purify our hearts.
SubhanAllah, Shaykh, your words are very powerful. Islam is very simple when we look at it, actually. It's we as human beings who complicate the process.
Right, and we need to be patient, wallahi, with the deen. And again, there's no difference between someone so sophisticated or a simple man. Everybody is supposed to do their obligations.
Okay, Shaykh, on that note, we're going to go for a very short break. And then when we come back, inshallah, we'll open up the phone lines and get the viewers involved into the second part of the discussion. So, dear viewers, we're going to move over to a very short break. And then when we come back, we'll open up our phone lines to see who's going to be first and answer the question. And that is, what are the different types of hearts? And inshallah ta'ala, we will go through your answers as well that you gave on our Facebook. So let's go for a short break. And then, dear viewers, get close to your telephones, get close to your Facebook, and get involved with the program. So I'll see you in just a few moments.
Lord, change our heart.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, dear viewers, after a very short break here on our live program, Gems of the Heart. And mashallah, we're today looking at some of the diseases that affect our heart and cause us to be distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dear viewers, the phone lines are now open. You can call us using any of the two numbers there running across your screens. And the question which we're looking for a response for is, what are the different types of the heart? And we will come to your answers in just a few moments, but we want to give you some time for those who are real dedicated students who want to talk to us here on the studio. So do call us and do give us your questions. And at the end of the program, we'll give you the new piece of homework, inshallah ta'ala. Sheikh, let's continue with our program. The next disease, so we looked at, the first disease we said was looking at things incorrectly or not being able to perceive them correctly. The second disease is hasad, or I think you translate that as jealousy. Is that correct?
Or envy or jealousy.
Envy.
Right. Al-hasad is something also mentioned in the Quran. That is, people envied the Prophet ﷺ, that he was sent from among the Arab, like the people of Bani Israel. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that also in the last part of the Quran. So this is a very serious disease in the heart. And that's when a person wishes for someone to lose what a favor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had bestowed on him. And that's a sign that the heart does not really believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the proper way. And that's what hasad, and it's definitely needs a lot of details, needs a whole episode by itself to discuss the hasad and how to eradicate that from our hearts and to purify our hearts, because there's something in every single human being. They tend to not to be so happy and comfortable when they see someone has something that they don't have. So how to push that away from the heart, it's something that we need to be discussing, of course, inshallah.
Okay, so we had a look at al-hasad. There is another Arabic word which requires translation, but I think it's ghubta. I think that's how they say the word. What does that mean?
Ghibta, or the permissible hasad, basically.
Okay.
Hasad is forbidden, except in two cases, and these two cases are mentioned in the authentic hadith by the Prophet ﷺ, and this is what the ulama, they called ghibta. Ghibta comes from the meaning of that you're rejoicing or happy, which is not really hasad. It's that when you see someone that has something that is good, whether it's knowledge of the deen of Islam or wealth, that he's using this wealth for the sake of Allah. Only these two characteristics. If you see someone with knowledge of the deen, a scholar in the deen, or someone that is spending his wealth for the sake of Allah, it's permissible in this case to wish that you would have the same without that person losing this favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay.
Other than these two qualities, it's not permissible even to wish that I would wish to have the same thing without them losing it. Once a person wished that someone would lose something, this is hasad. So al-ghibta, or the permissible hasad, is only when a person would see someone with knowledge of the deen, with wealth, that he's spending it for the sake of Allah. He would say, if I have the same, I would do the same with good deeds and so on, without them losing it.
Okay, so that's true. Sheikh, what about the third one, which we mentioned at the beginning, but jealousy? And if you can tell us the difference between envy and jealousy.
Jealousy, or if they translate it as ghayra,
okay,
in the Arabic language, ghayra or jealousy is a good thing if it's done in the right way.
Okay.
And the sense of jealousy or ghayra is when a person feels something is exclusive for him and he doesn't want to share it with anyone else. This is not a very good thing if it comes to materialistic things, right? For wealth and so on, you should share and so on. But when it comes to your honor and dignity, like one's wife, for example, one's daughter, right? The jealousy is a healthy one, is a good thing, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ghayra. So if we translate it, which means jealousy, nothing is the like of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's a perfect attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, perfect one, not a negative one. And what it means is that we can discuss it in more detail.
Sheikh, we've got a phone call from the KSA, so if we could take, then we'll come back to each other at the point of jealousy. We have Brother Amir calling us from the KSA. Brother, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing?
Yes, good, alhamdulillah. My question is that scholars, they've written so many books on the fiqh al-jawarih, the fiqh of the body. Why don't they write more books on the fiqh of the heart? I mean, maybe that's one of the reasons why people don't go to the mosque, because there are all these books about rules and stuff, but very few books about how to remove hasad and how to remove, the practical steps. So how come we don't have more books on this topic, like fiqh of the heart?
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Why aren't the scholars writing more books on this specific topic?
All right, excellent. Your question is very clear. Do you have any other questions or comments you'd like to make?
No, that's it. I just wanted to know about this, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Brother Amir, calling us. Thank you very much, Brother Amir, calling us all the way from the KSA. Sheikh, shall we address the question straight away? So,
sure.
Talking about general fiqh, which is, some say is very dry, it makes the heart go low. Why don't we have more books on the heart?
Actually, it doesn't make the heart, of course, go low, because if it's fiqh, that means it's something that is wahi, revelation from Allah. Quran revealed about these matters of fiqh, of jawarih, of the physical body and the aspects of actions, and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. That means this is one of the means to purify the heart. So how to make salah, how to make wudu, how to give zakah, all of this is essential, of course. So we should not belittle that, of course. This is so important. That's why the ulama, they talk about it. But as the caller said, this is true. Many sometimes they neglect or they don't talk much about the fiqh and the understanding of the hearts. Right? Although it's mentioned in the Quran and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, but the scholars, they did. And there are books about this. I'm not sure about in English, but you would find many of the writings of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, Ibn Qudama, and others of the great scholars of the deen of Islam. They talk about matters of the heart and how to purify our hearts and how the destructive things of the hearts and how to purify ourselves from that. But also one of the reasons for this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful. And when we just follow what's in the Quran from the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is sufficient to purify the heart. To purify the heart, and this is a very delicate situation. People think that for my heart to be purified, that means I have to feel something.
Okay.
I have to feel good, and this is a sign that my heart is pure. This is not necessarily true. A heart can be deceived by feelings, right? So it's not something that we're waiting for a specific feeling for us to feel that our hearts are pure. No, it's about following the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of which is the deeds done by the heart and the physical actions, and that would purify the heart, and the heart, when it's pure, then it's steadfast on the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But definitely, I think more in English language, there should be more books written and translating some of the great work of the early generations of Islam when they talked about these aspects and these matters of deeds in the heart.
Okay, excellent. MashaAllah, there's a comprehensive answer there for Brother Ahmed calling from the KSA. Sheikh, let's go back to the topic of jealousy. And if I can also ask you to talk about some of the causes of why people have the problem of jealousy.
Right. But we stopped at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of his attributes, and this is a good attribute, of course, because it's a perfect attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it means, as the Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith, Inna Allah yaghar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ghayra. And what is this ghayra? Is when the believer commit a sin. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants the heart of the believer to be exclusive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when the person deviate away from having the heart attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has this ghayra, which is a beautiful thing, one of the perfect attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the good ghayra. And with the relationship between people, as we said, there is a good one, a good type of ghayra based on clear evidences and so on. But there is the bad one, where people just have jealousy when they see someone has something and they want to have it. Whether that person loses it or not, it doesn't matter. So it goes with the same meaning of al-hasad. Or when jealousy is just overboard and people transgress the limit, when a person is suspicious about his wife unjustly, right? Or the same thing for the wife. And that basically destroys the heart. So to do things in the right perspective and to observe, that's why observing the orders of Allah protect us from this. Women wearing hijab, men lowering their gaze, right? And this is protect when it comes to matters of the ill jealousy between husband and wife and between people. One of the reasons why people have envy and jealousy is because they have a lack in the belief in the qadr of Allah.
Okay.
If people believe in the qadr of Allah, which is one of the pillars of al-iman and the effect of that in the hearts, then when we see someone that Allah bestowed a favor on him, we won't feel jealous or envious. Why? Because this is from Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most wise. That's why we have to be careful. Sometimes people look at someone and they would say, this person is rich and I'm not. How can that be? Right? Questioning who? The wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who said that being rich or not is a favor or not? It's a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or why this person does not have legs and why this person is sick. And things like this is all by the qadr of Allah, by the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So people, instead of questioning this and being envious and so on, a person should see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the best, that he can be the best on the face of earth if he would worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with what's given to him. So sometimes being deprived of something, that's the real giving. Right? If a person is his eyesight is taken away from him. It's something that needs patience, of course. But this can be looked at in a different way, that this is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to that particular person to see whether he's going to be patient and pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not. If he's pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this person can be the best person on the face of earth. So it's our own, again, goes back to the conception of things, the misconception of what is right and what is wrong.
Okay. Sheikh, another disease of the heart which follows after the concept of jealousy is a person becomes very miserly. What does that exactly mean?
Being bakhil or shahih, to have miserliness, that means when a person is so stingy, he does not want to give. Right? And again, it has to do something with the sickness in the heart, that a person thinks or believes that this wealth, and it's not just in wealth, in his effort, in his time, in his strength, he doesn't want to help anybody. He's not generous whatsoever. It's because of the disease in the heart that the person thinks that this is his. And the leader of all of these people is like Qarun, the cousin of Musa, when he said, إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ عِنْدِي, I got this from a knowledge of myself. Right? So when a person believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his heart is pure, he would perceive wealth as something that he's been entrusted with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him this provision. For what reason? To test him. Whether he's going to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not, he would give the rights of this wealth, he would help others, and so on and so forth, and he would not be a bakhil or someone that is stingy and so on. And sometimes people, the shahih, for example, is someone is not just stingy when it comes to his own wealth, he's stingy when it comes to what people have in their own hands. Right? He wants it all for himself. He doesn't want them to give it to anyone but his own self.
So that's like a stage even above jealousy.
Right, definitely. And it's if you search, there is a root to it in the heart. And that's when we talk about deeds or things done by the heart. It's not the fact that he's not able to put his hands in his pocket to get money out. No, the heart is the king, and the king is not sending these orders. Actually, the king, which is his heart, is sending the orders to keep your hand to yourself. Don't give, right? Don't be generous, don't smile, don't help anyone. So the heart is sending these sick orders because the heart itself is sick.
Subhanallah. Sheikh, another very common disease we find that people are struck by is that of desire. In Arabic, we will use the word shahawat.
Right.
Could you explain that one for us?
This is something, as we said earlier, it's mentioned in the Quran. And that's why there's two types of diseases of the heart, as the ulama they say. There is marad al-shubuhat, the disease of doubtful matters, and the cure to this is ilm, is knowledge. And there's the disease of al-shahawat, the desires and the lusts and so on. The shahwa, or the desire in itself, is not something condemned in itself because we're created to have certain desires. What is condemned, or what's the disease in the heart, is what makes a person commit sins or fall into hypocrisy or so. And that's what a disease in the heart. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made what is halal for us sufficient. And when a person, the halal is not sufficient, and he seeks what is haram, what is forbidden, this is a major problem. And that's what the disease comes into the heart. And that's why it's an amazing thing, and it's important for us as Muslims to witness that. Look at what is haram. You would find it's the means of justice and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala established in the system. And it's because of the selfishness and the ignorance that sometimes a human being falls in. For example, the shahwa, or the desire. A person wants to look at whatever he wants. He wants to have relationships when it comes to illegal or haram relationships with women and so on. Is that fits the justice of the human beings? Again, this is when it comes to reason. It's enough that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade it. Would you like for someone to do that to your wife or to your sister or to your daughter? And that's what the Prophet ﷺ, when a man came to him and he had this in his heart, he said to the Prophet ﷺ that he embraced Islam. But he said, then leave his zina. Give me permission to commit zina. This is something that I can't control myself. Basically, that's what he said. The Prophet ﷺ, and see the wisdom of the Prophet ﷺ, he asked him questions, and we can discuss these questions.
Sheikh, sorry, I have to cut you again. We have a phone call coming all the way, mashallah, from Nigeria. We have with us Abu Bakr calling us from Nigeria. Brother, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you for your efforts, and jazakallahu khairan.
Thank you very much, brother. Go ahead, give us your question or your comment, please.
Yeah, I have a friend is complaining of his heart being polluted. Subhanallah, even when he is listening to Quran or Allah's name, he's feeling guilty of like shocking in his heart. So what is Sheikh advice to him?
Sorry, brother, so your question is about what causes the heart to become what, sorry?
He's feeling like if he's reciting Quran or listening to Quran, he's not enjoying the Quran recitations.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So to him, he knows it's like heart is being polluted.
Okay, thank you very much, brother. Your question is very clear. Thank you, Abu Bakr, calling us all the way from Nigeria. Sheikh, I think that's probably the main question which most people are very, worried about. Why is it that they read Quran or they're praying and nothing's happening? What's wrong?
Well, this is a beautiful question because it touches our hearts, and it's important that we do something about it.
Okay.
One of the early generations of Islam, he said, if the hearts really reflect upon the Quran, no one will be satisfied, meaning that they would want more and more and to spend more time with the Quran. So the Quran, if really our hearts are pure, and he mentioned, لو طهرت قلوبنا, if our hearts are pure, ما شبعت من كلام الله. If our hearts are pure, we would want to fill it so much and all the time with the Book of Allah. So when we see ourselves don't feel like wanting to recite Quran, or we don't get the effect from reciting the Quran, that's a sign that the hearts are not fully pure. How to deal with this situation? First of all, we should never give up. Reciting the Quran or memorizing the Quran is not about physical feeling that we would get. What if a person doesn't feel anything? It doesn't matter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is rizq, this is provisions from Allah. He give it to whoever He wills. So never give up. And make sure that you do this every day, and reading Quran every day, and putting the effort without giving up whatsoever, without setting a limit. I would set a limit for 4 months. If I don't feel good after that, that means I will quit. No, this is a bad sign, and you would never feel anything. So never give up. This is a very important thing. Making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to purify our hearts.
Okay.
One of the dua the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allahumma ati nafsi taqwaha zakkiha anta khayru man zakkaha. Oh Allah, give my heart its taqwa, purify it, because you're the one that would best purify my heart or my soul. And there is the hadith, also the dua, and this is a very, very important dua. Inshallah, some other time maybe we can give its time. The dua where the Prophet ﷺ said it's important for every Muslim, if he hears this dua, to memorize it.
Okay.
Which is the dua of al-karb, the dua of sadness and so on. Allahumma inni abduk wa ibnu abdik wa ibnu amatik, nasiyati biyadik madin fiya hukmuk adlun fiya qada'uk. In this dua, the Prophet ﷺ said that part of it, ij'al Qur'ana rabi'a qalbi.
Okay.
Oh Allah, make the Quran the spring of my heart, wa nura sadri, and the light of my chest, and the means for me to be away from concerns and miseries and so on. So making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is another aspect to this, to cure this for sure. And the third thing is that we need to make sure that we are purifying our hearts from sins, asking Allah for forgiveness, the attachment of this heart to this world, right? And the more you read Quran, and physically make sure that you read Quran, it goes into the heart, and reflecting upon its meaning, it pushes away the harm. And with the istighfar and watching ourselves also, because the heart has its going forward or going backward. So watching this is important.
Okay, excellent, Sheikh. Now let's move over to the part of homework where our viewers have contributed and answered the question about what are the different types of hearts. If we can get the answers on the screen, and I'll go through them, and then you can tell us which one is right and which one is wrong, inshallah ta'ala. So we have, mashallah, 3 people that have given us their answers. You can see them up on the screen. You can see our very first one comes from Ladida Europe, and he says there is the good, there is the bad, and the ugly, and the wicked heart. So he's divided up into 4 different hearts. Sheikh, what would you say about that answer?
MashaAllah, this is good, of course. Of course, the ulama, when they talked about the different types of hearts based on the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, they said something close to this meaning. There's the good heart, and there is the opposite, of course, the bad heart, and there's something in between.
Okay.
Which is the sick heart. It depends on which is closer. Is it closer to be good or closer to be bad and wicked and so on? So this can be something that relates to what is right, inshallah.
Okay, and the second answer, we have with us an answer from Nuwaira Siraj Khair, and she says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. According to Imam Ibn Kathir, there are 4 different types of hearts. A polished, as shiny as a radiant lamp, and she says a sealed heart with a knot tied around its seal, an upside down heart, and a wrapped heart. And Sheikh, I want to read the last answer as well before I get your comments. The third comment is Rose Muhammad, and she says 2 types, mainly a heart of a Muslim and another of a non-Muslim. So Sheikh, can you give us the correct answer?
This is inshallah all correct in a sense that the ulama talked about these different things, some more general, some more specific. And these types of hearts, as the second answer, it's mentioned in the Quran. Because, like for example, the last one, the wrapped heart. It's mentioned in the Quran that when the people of Bani Israel, when they said, قَالُوا قُلُوبُنَا غُلْفٌ, our hearts are wrapped. And when you see when it's wrapped, that means nothing is going in.
Okay.
No goodness is going in, right? And there is the sealed one. No matter what a person do, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the hypocrites. He sealed their hearts as a punishment for them. And the good heart, that would make the person radiating light. That means the benefit is extended to others.
Okay.
Right? So it's mashallah.
So all the answers we say are correct, but Sister Nuwaira was the most accurate.
Yes.
Okay, so mashallah, Sister Nuwaira, your answer was the most accurate from amongst those there. Sheikh, shall we also share with our viewers the good news that we have this week?
Sure.
So, dear viewers, the Sheikh has, or the channel has come with an idea for those who are more dedicated with this subject and want to really excel with their knowledge of how to purify their hearts. Inshallah ta'ala, on a weekly basis, there will be questions set out for our viewers, and they will be set open to anybody who wants to answer. On our Facebook page, you can download them, and then your answers, inshallah, you will send them to us, and the Sheikh and myself will have a look at those, and you'll get a marking, a grading, and whoever gets the highest grade, or amongst those who get the highest grade, their names will be read out, and we will monitor your progress, and we will have the lines open for you to communicate with us. Sheikh, would you like to say a very quick word on that?
I would think that inshallah this is something that when we put the effort, many times when we listen to programs and so on, you listen and it goes away. Knowledge, you have to tie it. It's like a hunt. You know, as some of the early generations of Islam, they said that. It's like a deer passes by. If you don't put it down, right? The knowledge, if you don't put it down, if you don't write it down, if you don't put the effort, it goes away, flies away. So this is a mean, inshallah ta'ala, so that maybe we can have the knowledge to stay with us, because we need that on a daily basis to purify our heart.
Excellent. So we're keeping track of the students. Sheikh, the last thing before we conclude the program is the question for this week. Would you like to tell them the question, or shall I?
Go ahead.
Okay. So dear viewers, the question for this week, you will see it on your screens right about now, is in which surah in the Quran, approximately, in which surah in the Quran does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us that the heart of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was washed with the blessed water of Zamzam? So the question will be put up on our Facebook page, and we're looking for your answers. MashaAllah ta'ala, we'll see who is the first one to respond and who is the most accurate to respond.
And to add to this,
it's
not something that's going to be directly mentioned like this in the Quran. It's an indirect way. So it's an indirect verse that in the tafsir you would find it in the tafsir of the verse, but it's indirect to indicate that this authentically happened to the Prophet ﷺ from the Sunnah, from the hadith of the Prophet.
So the person who's going to answer this question has to do some real research.
Right.
Okay. Sheikh, on that note, we have to conclude. The time flies so fast in this program, and I really like to thank you very much for coming and sharing with us your knowledge and your experiences, and conclude by saying Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you very much. Dear viewers, we've come to the end of our second program, Gems of the Heart, and subhanAllah, it's so much fun when you talk about things that make relevance to your lives, and you can feel them having an impact on your heart. You just want to keep talking and keep discussing, but that's the nature of the program. We have to conclude there. I would like to give a very special thank you to Brother Amir from the KSA, and a bigger thank you to Brother Abu Bakr from Nigeria for calling us here in the studios, and all those that participated, especially Sister Nuwaira, who got the question spot on, mashallah, quoting from Ibn Kathir. So we will wait to see who responds now on our Facebook. The homework is there, and the questions, the course that we'll begin, will also be there on Facebook. Dear viewers, I thank you very much for your patience with us, and I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in, and also like to thank the channel for their patience and making the program possible, and for their hard work. On that note, I'd like to conclude and say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You're living in a lawful way. Be mindful of what you say. Be sincere when you pray. Today could be your last day. In the same heart. Lord, only you can change your heart. We call upon you to do so that we may submit to you. Oh Lord, only you can change your heart.